This is Michelle. I'm trying to be quiet because trying not to disturb. There's a night watchman who also doubles in the daytime as a basic maintenance guy. Try not to disturb him. He's sleeping outside where it's comfortable in the cool air. Inside the building, it's a little bit warm, heated up by the sun, and many times in the daytime, not all the time, but right now it's a little bit warm inside the building, so he's sleeping outside. So I'm trying to keep it down. This video is going to be more than likely entitled, "I Hate Myself." For many, many reasons. Many, many, many reasons. I'm going to turn the screen off so that hopefully save data. Verify that it's still recording. Yeah, it looks like it. I just set myself up in so many ways in my life for disappointment, unconsciously, of course. Unrealistic expectations typically about relationships, about marriage. My first, I've been married several times, but my first real marriage was with a Chinese Thai woman. And I had suspicions that she was going to become an international prostitute through her friend, June, but that doesn't make it so. That doesn't make it for sure. It's just a suspicion on my part. When I asked her if she's a call girl, she didn't understand the question. Possibly because she wasn't, or possibly because she didn't want to understand the question. It almost doesn't matter at this temporal juncture. Much of our marriage, we were not together. I don't know what she was doing. She could have been with another guy. I have no clue. I prefer not to think about that. I used to call her the love of my life. Her nickname is Yui, by the way. And I used to, in the past anyways, used to label her the love of my life, but most of my stuff, most of my, what do you call it, framing, let's put it like that, in my life has been delusional anyway, so I'm not so sure that's a very accurate label anymore. She was the love of my life. Anyway, well, she was about half my age when we got involved. She was 22, I was 44. This was a number of years ago, about 16 years ago. Seems like for a long, long time ago, but anyways. She's happy, right now with another man. Much of my, what do you call it, much of the last 16 years, I felt like, what do you call it, like practice for her, so that she could have a decent relationship with her current guy. I don't know anymore. I'm not sure it really matters. just feel like a fool about everything. Unrealistic expectations about everything, mostly about relationships. My marriage with Yui, of course, ended in divorce. Of course, I blamed her, but it's always two-sided. Like I said before, we shouldn't waste time pointing fingers about yesterday because we're all participants in yesterday. Um, I used to call one of the things I used to label about relationships that are going downhill is we're all co-saboteurs of destroying the relationships we're trying to get out of, and making excuses, typically blaming others. But I try to be friends with her because we have a boy together. He's now a young man. Something like 17, I believe, something around there. His name is Arthur. I don't get to see him. I don't get to talk with him. I don't get to communicate with him any more than my own daughter here in the Philippines. And I have only myself to blame. So, yeah. Hopefully this is just another stage of awareness that I'll get through, muddle through, and see you guys, you non-existent listeners on the other side, so to speak. Anyway, it's been too much of my life in self-recrimination mode. Like this, like now. Already. So enough is enough. One of my delusional frameworks in the recent past was I thought it was like a secret agent for God. I mean, and that's not a joke. That's imagine a psychic investigator, a self-styled, self-made psychic investigator, believing he's working for God. To what end? Don't ask me. But and of course, unpaid. I suppose a homeless man has to have an occupation anyways, or some way to spend his time. When I was in Tacloban, homeless, I was trying to join a Buddhist temple, you know, so that I could fulfill some kind of overt function in society. But it was a pipe dream. It was a small, I don't know if you can call it a small Buddhist monastery in Tacloban, not too far from where I stayed, in a squatter area. And I was allowed to be in. At that time, I was still in contact with my mother, who was alive at that time, trying to get a job online, futilely, of course, even though I probably would have done okay as a call center agent. Um, they'd rather hire one of their own, of course. So it was kind of pointless for me to try to get a job. I was, I was able to get a shirt and tie somehow, and tried to have an online interview for a call center type position. Didn't even get to the interview stage. Never got to talk to the lead monk at the so-called Buddhist monastery nearby. One evening, or one early morning, I should say, I was having a conversation with my mother. One of the few chances I could get to speak with her, directly, live, not text. And there was a group of men nearby, really very, very, very loud, so I screamed at them to keep it down because I was in an important telephone call with my mother. And of course the next day, in retribution or punishment, however you want to look at it or describe it, money was stolen from me. Money from her, gift money from her. So I was very upset, and I went to the police department, who of course didn't do anything about it because, well, not just that I'm homeless, squatter, I'm a foreigner with no rights here, of course. Why should they care? So the police in Tacloban didn't even pretend to care, or temporarily they did later on, and made an overt effort, to make it look like they cared, but not really. It wasn't just money that was stolen from me. There was several things that were taken that belonged to me. A few last items of my lump sum pension. Most of that I invested in my current wife's family. I suppose possibly even out of guilt. I'm not really sure all the reasons, but we have a daughter together. She's about 10 years younger than the boy that I mentioned, the young man that I mentioned. It's Arthur and Hope. So the first one was with a Chinese Thai woman. Second with a Filipino. And because I'm so stupid, such an idiot, I'm not able to communicate with either one right now. Likely not able to in the future either. So I've had to accept a lot of things, largely because of my own stupidity. So as I was saying, hatred, self-hatred can take many forms, like resentment, neglect, apathy. So just like resentment or hatred directed at another person can take many, many different forms. Self-hatred can take many, many forms, like a self-destructive tendency. So one of my mottos in my life, other than I don't like to go where I'm unwelcome, other than that motto, I'd rather harm myself than others. Seem to have been doing that quite a bit lately, in the last couple of years anyways. One of the one of Jesus's adages or supposed adages that attributed to him is love your neighbor as yourself. What if you don't love yourself? What if you hate yourself? What if you resent yourself? It's not going to work. In my case, it'd be hate and resent your neighbor as you do yourself. I mean, to be realistic. So anyway. And I don't like the bottom line of it doesn't matter anyways. I don't like that bottom line. It sounds like equivocation to me. It sounds like a person not owning their mistakes or their attitudes. In one of Bill Murray's movies, I forget the name of the film, but it was one of their slogan expressions in the film was, "It just doesn't matter. It just does." Of course it does. Of course it matters. To say it doesn't matter is, to me, it's a denial of responsibility. Of course it matters. Everything matters. And I'm not going to follow it up with this idiotic, inane Buddhistic expression. Everything matters, but yet it doesn't. That's bullshit. It's bullshit. Everything matters. It's people who can't be accountable for their own thoughts and feelings and speech and actions that end up saying, it doesn't matter. It's all bullshit anyways. Yeah, because you make it such with your attitude. One of the things in life, personal accountability, owning your mistakes as well as your successes. But not just that, owning your attitudes, owning your perceptions or misperceptions, owning your own delusions, owning everything about your existence. That's why I can hate myself, or resent myself at least, is because basically setting myself up for disappointment. And unwittingly, of course. Oh, especially about, marriages. My marriage with Yui, my marriage with Grace, that's the Filipina. Totally unrealistic expectations about both. And trying to force them into a role that perhaps they were not just not inclined to fulfill, but perhaps incapable of fulfilling. My parents stayed together for 63 years, and I use that as a bar or, like a standard, an impossible standard to judge my own relationships. They were born in the 20s, last century. As far as I know, they stayed together approximately 63 years. the whole time they weren't together the whole time, especially in the near the end when he had her move first to Florida after she spent a year as director of extension in Emmett County, and then he had her. Well, he went down first, about 1 year ahead, because he could, to set things up for them, their retirement home, and he was in a small town, a suburb of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, called Davie, and I hope they were happy in their so-called golden years. The thing is, as far as I know, there's no such thing as a soul, no such thing as an afterlife. So anything that they had to be in this life, in a mythical afterlife. I've had dreams about them. I mean, when I was still in a delusional mode about an afterlife and whatnot, I had dreams about both of them. My mother was mindlessly happy, and my father was preparing, for her, and when she was still alive, preparing for her. Of course, in my mind, not in reality. So anyway, we carry around our whole lives these delusional frameworks, whether or not you're me, which you're obviously not, but or anything like me. We all carry around with ourselves these delusional frameworks based on Christianity or Islam or whatever, or even atheism. I tried to say before that even, there's a possibility that even atheists are delusionally framing things. Yeah, especially if they think that their species is really that important. But if they don't, if they treat their species, Homo sapiens, on this planet as just another species, then perhaps they're pretty close to the truth. If they're not egotistical about Homo sapiens and they're atheist, they're pretty close to the truth. We're just animals called Homo sapiens, biologically related to many other animals on the planet. And I used to think this thing called behavioral repertoire was important. It is for some things, like nurturing and territorialism. There's some important behavioral repertoire, but I gave it too much importance in my past internal venuings, let's put it like that. The attitude of, like I said before, nothing matters is, to me, it's worse than equivocation. It's denying accountability. And also the expression, life's a bitch and then you die. It's also, it's like resignation. It's kind of giving up in a sense. Life's a bitch and then you die. It's resignation. So I don't like nothing matters, and I don't like life's a bitch then you die. I don't like either one, because in the first one is denying responsibility, to say nothing matters, and the second one is giving up. Maybe even sometimes before you even try. So I don't believe in either expression as a way of life, that is. I mean, you can use it trivially, but I don't believe in either one. I don't believe that nothing matters, and I don't believe in life's a bitch and then you die. Okay, for different reasons. As I said, with that expression, why even get out of bed with that attitude? You know, why even get out of bed if you're going to have an attitude consistently? Oh, life's a bitch, then you die. Why even get the fuck out of bed? Why even get out of bed with that attitude? It's like resignation. It's like no matter what, life's going to be a bitch, right? Yeah, with that attitude. With that attitude, of course. Why wouldn't it be with that attitude? Anyway. So, hopefully by the end of this video essay, hopefully by the end of this video essay, I won't be so resentful toward myself. We'll see. All I know is that my expectations and hopes going into both marriages with Yui and with Grace were just not just delusional, but and not just totally unrealistic, just stupid. Just stupid. Just plain stupid. Hopefully I'll get over it at some point. One of my best friends back in the college days at Michigan State was Johnny, the Jaws. He had some expressions that were like practically trademark, coupled with his identity, like "fuck you." Why don't you go kill yourself? Yeah. Needless to say, he spent many, many years in therapy, as far as I know, and taking medication for anxiety and whatnot. For the longest time, I felt pity toward Johnny. I don't think it was a superiority complex on my part. I just felt pity for the guy because he was so freaking negative. He was abused by his father when he was young, and so that doesn't help. And, not sexually, just physically, beaten. Who knows why? Who knows why, man? Anyway, he went through therapy and he took medication for a number of years. I don't think it was for anxiety. It could have been for depression, possibly. Human beings, if I can use myself as an example, or, what not to do or how not to be, we load ourselves with guilt. We torture ourselves. We set ourselves up for failure. We set ourselves up with unrealistic expectations and hopes about a lot of things, not just marriages or relationships, but about jobs and new places that you move to. When my best friend and I went to California from Michigan, nicknamed Jackie, lovely, lovely woman, one of my best friends of my life. We moved from Michigan to California. She succeeded, I did not. So, and I was, of course, to put it nicely, I was looking for my soulmate the whole time, and of course, perhaps I found her, and her name was Tammy. But the thing is, I didn't have the courage even to ask Tammy out. In the end, didn't even have the courage to ask her out in the end. So many times in my life, so therefore, many times in my life, I internally labeled myself, what a fucking loser, you fucking loser, you fucking loser, you fucking loser, you fucking loser. So, and that was very private and me to myself. You fucking loser. Zero courage. Well, I had enough of that with Yui, of course, years later. Well, I was tired of getting the shit end of the stick all the time, and somebody else's, what do you call it, somebody else's secondhand girlfriend or whatever, or secondhand job, or secondhand car, or whatever you're talking about, everything secondhand. One of my girlfriends in Florida she was in love with this guy, like a security guard at her high school, and so much, what do you call it? At the time I thought she used me because she was in love with him and she wanted to make him jealous, even though he was married, and so it's so complicated, and his wife just got pregnant with her second child, and so I mean, it's an extremely complicated situation, right? The games that people play, man, especially with themselves. The games that people play, especially with themselves. And I'm referring to her with herself and me with myself. At the same time. Just different kinds of games. Anyway. Oh, I don't think Yui and well, I hope that Grace didn't treat our marriage as a game to win or whatever. I don't know. I don't think either one of those relationships were not games to any of us three, hopefully. Not to them and not to me. My life has never been a game. I'm not homeless or when I'm homeless, I'm not homeless because I choose to be, and I just want to see how it is to be homeless. No, that's not me, okay? And although in the past I did sabotage relationships, I wasn't aware of sabotaging either marriage with Yui or Grace. not consciously anyways. The thing is, both were doomed in a sense because, like I said, my unrealistic expectations and hopes and dreams about both, and again, impossible to make them, or make the relationship with them, either one, anything like my parents' relationship that lasted for 63 years, impossible, or resemble it in any way, shape, or form.